Hi, this is Helen from crystalsandcrochet.com. In this video tutorial I want to show you how to work with front post and back post stitches, sometimes called raised stitches. When we make a front post stitch, it gives us a smooth finish to the front of our work because the top loops of the stitch are forced to the back of our work. When we make back post stitches, it forces the top loops to the front of our work. So when we look at the back, this is the effect of having made front post stitches, this is the effect of having made back post stitches. Very often used in forms of ribbing, where it's literally as simple as alternating front post, back post, front post, back post, and it gives a really raised and sort of stretchy fabric, which is great for ribbing on hats, scarves, or any sort of garments we want to make. Okay, let's use this piece. So, looking basically at our stitches, these are double crochets, US terms, or a treble crochet in UK terms. Here's the post of our stitch. Here are our two top loops, and then if I pull that apart, you can see underneath there we have our third loop as well. Now, whether you're working front or back post stitches, you need to make sure that your stitch is below all of those loops, so below the third loop. Okay, if we're going to make a front post stitch, the hook goes in from front to back and then from back to front, so that we're around the post but underneath all of those top loops. If we're going to make a back post stitch, we come from back to front and then from front to back, so that again we're underneath all of those loops at the top of our stitches. Okay, I'm just going to start off by putting in in fact, let me put in a standing single crochet because that will just show it a little bit easier. Let's just pop a couple of normal single crochets in there, and then you can see, because they're obviously made into the top loops and you can see the third loop underneath those stitches. Okay, so stitches made around the post are made exactly the same as the stitches that you make into the top loops. So if we're going to do a US double or UK treble, we're going to yarn over once and go from front to back and back to front around the post of the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, through two loops, yarn over, through two loops, and there we have a front post double crochet. Show you again. Yarn over from front to back and from back to front, yarn over, pull through, and make your stitch exactly as normal. Okay, and you can see that those stitches are sitting around the post, and they're underneath all of those top loops. Okay, from the back all we see is the base, the 2 loops at the base of the stitch around there, and from the front we're around the post of the stitch, and now the top loops of that previous row are hidden. You can also see these are single crochets, US terms, double crochet, UK terms, and a single crochet is half the height of a double crochet. So when you're working around the post, you need to add an extra, I call it a unit of height. So this is 1 unit, this is 2 units. If we go into a treble, it becomes 3 units, a double treble is 4 units. That's just how my mind works when I'm designing, etc. So if this stitch is in the top, and this one is around the post, this one needs to be 1 unit longer in order to keep the top level. Okay, let me show you back post stitch now. Essentially exactly the same principle, but we're just working from the back instead of from the front. So it's yarn over, hook through from the back, around the post, and from front to back. Pull up a loop and make your stitch exactly as you normally would. Okay, and then you can see that those 2 bottom loops of your stitch are now showing on the front of your work. Okay, yarn over, from back to front and from front to back, so that there's your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over and through 2. Okay, and you can see now that those top loops of the stitches are being forced forward. So again, if we turn it over, it almost looks like a front post stitch from the back. And this is where, when you're working in ribbing and you're working in rows, as you turn, you just make the opposite stitch. So if you finished with a back post, then when you turn, you begin with a front post and alternate them all the way along, and that way you get that completely reversible ribbing effect. Okay. We can also work increases and decreases around the post of a stitch. The only thing that I would say is where you are working an increase, the second stitch always goes below the first. Let me show you. Let me just do a couple more single crochets, and then if I'm going to do 2 double crochets around this same post in order to increase, let's make the first one exactly as we would do normally, and then the second one goes below that. Okay, and now you can see the reason for that. That first stitch at the top, in order for that to sit flat and neat, the first stitch must be behind and the second stitch must be in front. Plus it's much easier than trying to fiddle around getting above that stitch. Okay, So you can easily work 2 stitches around the same post. You can also work in clusters, or something like a double crochet 3 together, also around the post. Equally, whether it's front or back post. So if we make our first partial double crochet around the first post, then we go to the second leg around the second post, and then we go to the third leg around the third post, and join them all together. Okay, and so we've got a front post double crochet cluster, or front post double crochet 3 together. Okay, and it works exactly the same if you're doing it through the back post. A little bit more yarn. Okay, so if we're going to go around the back post and make a back post double, and we want to increase, we'll make sure that we go below that first stitch that we made, okay, so that we've got 2 stitches sitting around the post. That's our first one, that's our second one, and that's how it will sit evenly at the top. Okay, and if we want to do a cluster around the back post, again we just make 1 partial double, 2 partial doubles, and 3 partial doubles, and pull them all together. Okay, so there we've done a back post double crochet 3 together. Okay, so it can be used when we're decreasing, or if it's part of a pattern. Generally you will have some chain spaces between, and then move on to your next stitch so that you're keeping an even number of stitches if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that is how to work around the front or back post of stitches, always making sure that you are below all of those top loops and that you're actually working around the post. With single crochet, it's much more difficult to see where your post is, but your third loop with your single crochet always comes right down tight in here. So when you're working around the post of a single crochet, you're often literally just going to be underneath those top loops, because it's very difficult to find that third loop and get around it on both sides, and to actually get around the post of the stitch like that. Okay, but anything from a half double crochet up, it's much easier to see. This is half double crochet here. You can easily see the post and your top loops, so it's easy to get around there whichever way you're working, front or back. Okay, so that is how we work with front and back post stitches. Thanks for watching.